Good evening, and thank you for joining Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Epsilon Epsilon Omega chapter for tonight's webinar, Educating Yourself About Community Concerns. We hope that you've enjoyed our musical introduction, Compliments of the Harlem Renaissance. My name is Janelle Hardy, and I will be your moderator for this evening. We would first like to thank our co-sponsors, our co-sponsor, the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. Along with our supporters, thank you to the Divine Nine chapters, the NAACP, the National Council of Negro Women, CU Solidarity Sundays, Bend the Arc Jewish Action CU, and the ACLU of Champaign County. The agenda for tonight's webinar consists of 3 parts. We will first hear from 2 of tonight's panelists regarding gun violence prevention initiatives. We'll then hear from our 3rd panelist with a 2022 voter education update. The last part of our agenda this evening will include questions from our webinar participants for tonight's panelists. If you have questions for our panelists or comments that you'd like to share, please put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will also have a couple of polls for this evening.
I think Urbana is in the 20 to 25 shooting range. We've had 2 homicides in Champaign and within 1 in Urbana. So as we in the city of Champaign started really looking at how to address our gun violence crisis, we've come up with something that we are extremely pleased with, that we are calling our blueprint, community gun violence reduction plan to address our gun violence. As I shared with you, we have a number of groups, activities, organizations, individuals working to address our gun violence. But it's been at a place where we need to coordinate the work, the activities, the communication, working together directly with law enforcement to address our community's gun violence. So the gun violence really has 3 important, our blueprint, has 3 really important areas. So goal number 1 is really to address our gun violence and promote safety. So this is looking at programs and services for our youth and families. It is working with those individuals who are most likely to be involved in gun violence as a victim or a perpetrator. It is working with our population of individuals re-entering our community, increasing trauma level training, education in our community. And then the final part of our goal number 1 is working directly with our law enforcement to support law enforcement as partners in addressing our gun violence. As I mentioned with you, I want to just quickly, the part of working with police can't solve this issue in isolation, and we can't solve this issue as a community without the equal working together and communicating and bridging these long-term historical trust issues between Black communities and police. So through the coalition, through the city blueprint, we're going to be hitting that area very, very directly. The second goal through the blueprint is looking at community engagement, developing and maintaining partnerships, collaboration, integrating of our services. And then the third area of our blueprint is looking at data-driven decision making, looking at the data, documenting everything. For the last few years, we've been looking at every shooting incident and are able to process, dissect what's been happening, when, time of day, location. We have a really interesting heat map in Champaign and Urbana where every shooting incident has taken place. And so we are aware of what's happening in our community. The final piece I want to talk about as it relates to the blueprint and our work through the coalition across the county is looking at the root causes of gun violence. Not only for our model, we've looked at this work across the country, and there are some common factors that we believe are the drivers and contributors to gun violence. One is income inequality. Second is poverty. Third is underfunded public housing, under-resourced public services, underperforming schools. This is huge here, the lack of opportunity and hopelessness amongst those involved in gun violence. And then the final one is this easy access to firearms by those individuals involved. Where are these guns coming from? How are they getting into our community? So I'll offer that as my part for our contribution today and then turn it over to Lamont.
Thank you, Tracy, and good evening, everyone. First, I think that it is important to note that this issue of gun violence and the mechanisms by which we are looking to reduce and impact this in a positive manner are bigger than one person. It's bigger than Lamont Peppers, it's bigger than Tracy Parsons, it's bigger than the respective chiefs. And so the collective work within each city and the community as a whole is important from where I sit. From the city of Urbana standpoint, where we are looking to make our impacts is as we have highlighted 5 key areas in which we are going to be using our ARPA funding. We have started with the youth. We're going to be looking at how we can impact and fund youth programs that are already in progress at our Neighborhood Connection Center, HVNT, programs such as that, as well as we have developed stronger ties, first beginning at the high school with Fresh Principal Taryn Nance, looking into programs that can keep and offer brand new opportunities to these youth, opportunities that may not exist. One of the programs that the coalition, along with the city of Urbana and the school district, started back in 2019 that I now work with now, and it is based off the motto of the Unit for Go-Getters, is our Self-Made Kings program, where we are actually in the school and we are wrapping around specific young men who we have identified as having a different type of vision, view, or struggle, and offering them different opportunities as far as employment, social, emotional learning, different types of community engagement. From that also, I have been fortunate enough to develop a very strong working relationship with our police department and our SROs that are in the schools, both at the middle school and the high school. And an exchange of intel is important, especially when you think about trying to develop relationships with these young people in order to gain trust, as Tracy said, to really begin to push back and decrease on the no snitch policy. We can't live in that world anymore. We are losing not just citizens, but young citizens hand over foot. So one of the first target areas that we're going to be doing with the ARPA money, and I know we'll talk more about that later, is going to be focusing on the youth. It's going to be focusing on safe infrastructures, affordable housing. We've got to go in spaces where there is little to no physical light in order to help bring about some of the spiritual, mental, emotional light. We've got to create safer neighborhoods. We have to make it welcoming for not only the citizens who live there, but for people who want to visit. So I think that with all of the issues pressing both cities right now, with gun violence at the top of that, I want to say really quickly that as the community engagement coordinator for the city of Urbana, I can't begin to say how much I appreciate the support that Tracy Parsons and the Community Coalition have increased here in our city. This summer, we are going to be having our 48 Hours of Peace, and we've got a series of activities with 48 Hours of Peace and Juneteenth. And the Community Coalition has partnered with several of our Urbana organizations and are really clear. You host the program and we're going to come get behind it and help. And that intentionality is the type of cooperation necessary, I believe, to really push back against the rise of gun violence.
Thank you both for sharing. I want to dive in with a couple of questions for you guys in regards to some of the things that you discussed. I heard mention of the American Rescue Plan Act. So with that, or ARPA funds as it's commonly referred to. And Lamont, you touched on this a little bit, but if both of you could, Tracy, if you could talk a little bit about how those funds are going to be used and maybe some specific services in regards to how that's going to decrease gun violence in the community. And then if those are things that maybe some of our viewers can access, how would they go about accessing that? And then Lamont, if you would follow up thereafter with what the city of Urbana is doing.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I probably should have mentioned that in my opening. So the city of Champaign received about 25 million in ARPA funds for disbursement over the next couple of years. I'm really pleased with the level of investment that we've put directly into neighborhoods. So we have about 12, 13 million going to the Garden Hills area to invest in some of the infrastructure things, lighting, sidewalks, drainage issues, and some of those things to help in that neighborhood that we've been working on for a number of years. The other part is just the level of investment we've made for our blueprint. So we've committed at this point up to $6 million for supports for our blueprint, contracting with our community partners. So I mentioned trauma and the Trauma and Resiliency Initiative led by Karen Sims is going to be receiving several $100,000 to help train and inform and work with families as it relates to trauma. I think most of us are aware of the work of First Followers organization. Again, several $100,000 going to that organization who works directly with our formerly incarcerated population of individuals on the front end and back end. We also have a great partnership with Carl Hospital. Most of us are not aware of the fact that the emergency room is unbelievable space in the process of a shooting incident. And so we're working to put some trauma-related supports, addressing the population. So let me just quickly say, so when you have a shooting incident, you have those involved, you have the families, if they're part of a gang or a clique, they're all arriving, you have the interested parties, you have police. And so the emergency room is an unbelievable place when there's been a shooting incident that's taken place. So we're looking to put some hard support work there for disruption of retaliation, support for those involved, working with the police department and putting some important work there. We also have, the great work that Will Patterson is doing and Reverend Comer are doing and Tracy Dace are doing, and the Youth and Family Peer Support Alliance with Regina Kreider and her team. So we've got a number of identified partners on the front end. And then we're going to have about $3 million for unique partnerships to address these key areas. So one of the areas we really need support for in the community is what we call violence interruption. And getting out on the streets directly with those folks that are involved. So we're labeling that street outreach. And so we want to be intentional about how do we engage with those directly in the streets and disrupt the activity. So we have about $6 million right now out of our ARPA funds invested in addressing gun violence.
Thank you for that. Lamont, you want to chime in maybe with a little bit about how the city of Urbana and their relationship with the use of their ARPA funds? I know you mentioned the five initiatives. If you want to dive a little more into that.
Well, yeah, not just this. So first, what we did is that we made sure to make the citizens of Urbana a priority. After outlining 5 areas for the ARPA funds, we took to social media, we took to the internet, we took to the streets, and we developed a survey and we passed out because we want to hear from our citizens. And I was very intentional. I went foot to the street to neighborhoods that are highly populated by African-American citizens, letting them know the importance of, we need to hear from us now, before the checks are cashed, before the money goes out. We need to make sure that our voices are pinned to this. Some of the things that came out of it, I think too, and Tracy touched on this too, but, I think we have to begin to talk about infrastructure. He talked about the work that they're looking to do over in the Garden Hills area. One of the key areas we're going to be looking at is that the Ellis Subdivision Drive area. We've got to begin to make sure that these infrastructures and how they serve the homes are up to date. It's unbelievable how much stressor falls down from economy lecture of right in the homes of underserved populations that are root causes behind an increase in gun violence, an increase in criminal activity. Not only that, they have specifically, which I'm excited about, they specifically have identified the Self-Made Kings as a program focused right at youth that will see an increase in funding. That's going to be tremendous. You talk about this is bigger than one person. We're going to need volunteers to come in here and work with these young men. And then we want to expand the number of young men that we serve. And the coalition has been key behind that. Every year, they are the first to throw their support behind what the Self-Made Kings is trying to grow into that was literally almost snuffed out by COVID. And Tracy and the coalition was a mainstay. Even when it was hard to get together, when it was hard to service kids, he made sure that the city of Urbana knew that our support and our funding for this program, for this specific group of young men, will not diminish, fade, or move away. That's important. Anytime you can get a level of commitment that is consistent, that's what our youth need. They need to know that people and support is going to be there consistently. So not just with the Kings, not just with, the infrastructure issues, we're also going to be looking and targeting our minority-owned businesses. We are revamping the list through our community development department, making sure that we have an accurate list of those businesses that are owned and run by minorities, specifically African Americans, here in the city of Urbana. And then how do we align them up to get this funding that's here? Because the one thing about the ARPA funding that I think people want to be clear about is that once it's gone, it's gone. And not that we have one chance to make an impact, but we have one chance to burst through with this level of funding. And we can't wait on the next pandemic to come through for the government to start handing out extra checks. We're losing too many lives too quickly to make that type of bet. Also, we are looking at a project that the school district, District 116, something that was started by our very own Dr. Jen Ivory Tatum, a program to make use of a space that was once first known for Cablevision and Comcast, and then, if I can be transparent, was a hub for violence. When these kids were ready to engage in maladaptive behaviors and fights and even shootings, you didn't have to look further than right off of Vine Street in the Comcast area. And so we're looking to help fund and support a program that's going to take that and turn that into a social emotional learning hub for students 6th through 12th grade, where traditional schooling, for whatever reason, is not working. And we're not just going to be sending them home to be suspended. We're not just going to be putting them out of the building to be done with them. We're going to create a space where they and their traumas can go and get the assistance that it needs. And that takes funding. So, knowing that these ARPA funds are here, we have reached out and partnered with the Regional Planning Council. They helped us develop these 5 sections. They're going to help us with the distribution of the funds. And what I like about what's going on in Urbana is that there is still time to be heard. Urbana, if you're here, if you're listening, if you didn't get a survey filled out, if you didn't get a chance to come to the listening sessions where people got behind support, there is still time. My office is located here in the city building. I would love to hear from you, either by phone, email, or direct person. We are still taking voices to sections of government where they can be heard. I think that's crucial.
Just to add a little bit to what Mine was just sharing, we're a unique community from the standpoint of we know our kids and our families that are struggling in our schools and in our community. And so now that we know that, and we have the ability to individually look at kids and their families, to talk about solutions, disruption of gun violence, disruption of behavior and conduct that's unacceptable. We have the responsibility to address it. So I think these ARPA funds are going to play a new and different role for us to directly work with individuals, youth, families, and their kids. The other part about our gun violence that I want to share with the group is that we don't fit into nice, easy categories, right? So what I mean by that is, yes, we've had an increase in young adults carrying guns, being involved with gun violence. We've got a couple of groups and cliques of young people that are going back and forth, and they've been going back and forth for a number of years. We know those kids and their families that are involved in this stuff. Still looking for the solutions on how to disrupt it and stop it, but we know who they are. But the other part is that we have a lot of 25, 30, 35, 40-year-old reckless folks out here involved in gun violence. Our biggest reason for gun violence is interpersonal conflict. Somebody gets into it with another person, they're settling their beefs by shooting at each other. So how we disrupt that and how we change that, I think we're really struggling for the solutions for that. But I just wanted to share, we have a wide range of shooting related incidents, not one easy solution to solve this.
And quickly, Janelle, I just want to piggyback with some specifics. I didn't want to throw out vague ideas. The program that we are working with District 116 is called Plan for You. Plan for You will be a restorative therapeutic space for grades 6 to 12, students that will focus on the whole child through an equity-centered wraparound, social, emotional, trauma-informed service delivery model. And I wanted to make sure that that got out there specifically. And to tote to what Tracy is saying, because in all fairness, I think sometimes we see people like Tracy and myself, and we see titles and what are they doing? What are they doing? And I know Tracy has done it because I learned from his model, but I've been here since September 2020. And due to the increased number of shooting violences, I just want to tell everyone I was listening, I've been to the homes. I've sat in the living rooms of not only shooting victims, but the families of those who were doing the shooting. And the pain is tremendous on both sides. And just like Tracy shared, how we interrupt that, I think is the mission.
This is really great. You guys have touched on some really deep things. I wanted to kind of dive in a little bit more, and both of you have shared a little bit about this, but I think a lot of concern comes about early intervention and really the programs that are targeting youth in the communities. And I guess a little more information about things that are kind of in progress. How can, say, any of our participants that are viewing, how can they access that or make recommendations for, children that they may know? Is this like talking to people at the school district? Is there information directly in the city websites? Or how can they, kind of access that, or even volunteer if they want to continue and contribute their time?
Well, Lamont can certainly add to it. I think that's the reason I mentioned the Community Coalition initially. It's outside of the organizations that provide the leadership, it's all volunteer entities. So we have a number of committees that people can volunteer for. Certainly you can go to communitycoalition.org to learn more, see more of the committees that are involved. We have something that we call summer initiatives. This is some funding we get through the Mental Health Board, through the Don Moore Boys and Girls Club that's looking at specialty projects. So we want to hear from, a church or an individual who's got an idea to work with young people to do some constructive things to address them. And we've been providing, pilot and seed money to help those kind of ideas get off the ground. It's that time of year where we want those activities to take place. We do have a number of projects and programs through the schools in Champaign and in Urbana. Lamont mentioned the Self-Made Kings and the Goal Getters. These are high school, middle school and high school age youth who are struggling at home in school and in the community. So doing some very intentional, individualized work and approaches to them. We need volunteers, we need mentors, we need safe places for, I saw in the chat, there was a question about safe places. And so how do we get church facilities? How do we get community spaces? How do we get to schools? How do we get the park districts open, providing spaces for us to create and do engagement? You know, we don't live in the time period where we all would say, hey, we did this and we just played in the parks, and young people today don't function that way. So it is more organized, targeted approaches. And there's a number of community organizations doing great, great work. We just need more. We need the partnership and connection of them. And so I'll just give this as a quick example. Reverend Comer is doing some phenomenal stuff with Midnight Basketball. He has about 150 young people on Friday nights in something constructive that's positive. But not every kid is interested in playing basketball, right? So what else can we create and put in place for young people to do in the evenings, weekends, non-traditional times? So I'm really, you know, obviously we had the tragic loss of Janice Mitchell and her work. At Urbana Neighborhood Connections. And so, yeah, we've got some work to do and some opportunities, but I just wanted to share those things.
You know, when you talk about programs, if I may, I just want to make an intentional suggestion and plea. We're in a Twin City community with two of the most highly recognized and regarded institutions of learning in the nation, in the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and Parkland College. And there are some amazing programs that happen on both campuses here. Both cities have amazing park districts with a number of outreach programs that are offered year-round. But my plea is that I think that we need to be intentional about touching those families that just can't afford it. See, what good is a STEM club if it costs $70 to get in and they can't afford it? How can we begin to offer some scholarships or get these organizations to create scholarship opportunities? We have amazing park districts that offer all kinds of sports, recreational, and art activities, And I understand the importance of funding and generating income. Absolutely. Nothing runs for free. But at one point, how can we begin to look at our budgets when all of these organizations to carve out funding for these families whose children just can't afford it? And that's my plea. Last summer, you know, was kind of the first summer out of COVID as everyone started to feel a little safer and open up and go things. I can't begin to tell you how many times I went to or drove past both pools and saw large numbers of kids outside the fence looking in. I can't begin to tell you how many youth softball games and camps where I saw kids on bikes or walking on sidewalks watching activities. And I want to be clear, I'm not asking for free rides as much as I'm asking for intentional, strategic funding opportunities to create opportunities for families who just cannot afford these opportunities for their young people at home. We live in a community right now that is vast in wealth and opportunities, but they seem to not flow in all corners. And Tracy and the Community Coalition do an amazing job of shining lights on that. More so than ever have they been more intentional about saying we need these programs on the North End Champaign, on the Northeast side of Urbana. And I can only speak for Urbana. The Urbana Partnership is listening. The Urbana is going into areas like never before, offering on-the-spot programmings from ice cream cones and story times to bubble magics to art classes, anything to engage kids right in their neighborhood. It's an amazing start, but we need more of that.
Also, Ms. Hardy, I think I saw in the chat, there was a question about gun buyback. And so we did do a gun buyback program, I think, I want to say 6, 7 years ago. And we did explore it a little bit last year. So one of the challenges you have with gun buyback programs is not too often do you get the guns from the people that you want to get them from. And so they're very expensive when you talk about incentives for people to turn in their guns and what you're going to pay them out. And then the safety issues. But we believe, and I know I certainly believe through the coalition and our work, that everything should be on the table and we should leave no stone unturned. And then the last thing I just wanted to add that I should have said before, we've added an equity and engagement department here at the City of Champaign, which is really important to talk about the fact that everything that we're doing, from contracting to hiring to services and supports to neighborhood engagement, will now be done through an equity lens. And that's really, really key and important for our community. So I just wanted to get that on the table as well.
Thank you for that. Just to wrap this segment up a little bit, I'm kind of thinking you've really highlighted some great things that are coming out of the resources that have been provided in our community to really try to address some of the issues at their root causes. So how do we evaluate this? Like, when it's all said and done, how do we look back on the resources that were poured in, the students or the children, the families that have been impacted? How do we look back on this and say we've done a good job, we've done well, or we need to reevaluate certain things? What methods are you all going to use for like evaluations of your outcomes, goals, and objectives?
So yes, evaluation is an important part of our work through the City of Champaign and through our blueprint. That's the third arm of our engagement program is. So we have an engagement, an evaluator on board, collecting data on all of our decision-making, our contracting process, looking at all the decisions, where we are investing money, the services and supports. All of that will go through an evaluation that's linked to our ARPA funds and our work. I believe we've had a lot of good things going for the past few years with programs and services and neighborhood engagement. And we've got a number of successes, young people that we've changed their course in life, some folks who've made bad decisions who've come back and are working with us, who are now gainfully employed and taking care of themselves and their families. But it's not in a place where we can put a comprehensive place. So I know a blueprint is something that will be adaptable for Urbana and the county as well, as they go through their processes for spending their funds. We are, through the coalition and as a community, collaborating and working together, sharing of information, resources. Our law enforcement organizations, all partners share, support, and it happens, through the schools regularly. So, Wright Street is not that much of a divide. So we've got to really look at how we support one another. As Lamont was just saying, we're one community, and we might have two separate governments, but we're one community, and it requires all of us to come together. So go ahead, Lamont, I was a little winded there.
No, I'll be brief. So the City of Urbana, from the notification of the ARPA funding, and we received just under 13 million to operate in full transparency. What we've done is that we have partnered with the Regional Planning Council. And so what they're doing, along with one of our analysts, Mr. Will Kolashowski, is that they are going to be looking at, once these funds are dispersed, how were they used, who received what, and then what outcomes did we expect and what outcomes did we get? So I look for our analyst department to be putting together these reports probably near the end of the year in the winter. Our fiscal year runs from July to the end of June. So I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't 2 reports that were put together, one near the end of this year, kind of a midway point, and then certainly by the end of our fiscal year next year, at the end of June, we'll be able to take a much more in-depth look and make sure that, that we were as meticulous, in the distribution and the disbursement of the money, as well as the monitoring of the production and growth of the programs that we leaned in on.
Thank you both. This was really good. We're going to have them hang on. We will come back with some questions from our webinar participants a little bit later in this evening's program. Right now, I would like to, again, say thank you to both Tracy and Lamond for what they've shared, and transition to our second portion, which would be 2020 voter education updates. We're going to have James Manrique, who is a member of the League of Women Voters here in Champaign County and also a part of the Champaign County Voters Alliance. He is a voting specialist. He has a guru in all sorts of the fashion. He will also be joined by Muriel Jones, a member of Epsilon Omega's chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Hello to you both.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Good evening. Good evening. So thank you to our guests who've been with us so far. And so what James and I are going to do this evening is we are going to kind of do a question and answer about candidates. But before we start that, we're going to kind of give you a review of basic primary information, things that you may already know, but we want to make sure, you can never hear things too many times. So I am going to share my screen with you. All righty, so just some primary election reminders. We know that a primary election is going to be June 28th, 2022. Are you and your family members registered to vote? Well, you may not be sure. And so there's a couple of ways that you can check. So our Champaign County Clerk's office, our Champaign County Clerk, of course, is Aaron Ammons. Of course, you can contact him if you have any questions. But if you really want to check your status, go to that www.champaigncountyclerk.com. You can go there, you can register to vote, you can check your status on voting. You can do lots of different things on that website. So please, I encourage you to write that down, www.champaigncountyclerk, all one word, .com. The address is there as well as the phone number. You can register there, you can check, or you can update your voting status at any time. Wanted to make sure that you had some specific dates. And so you could register using paper forms starting now until May 31st. You can register by mail now until May 31st. You can register with the deputy registrar now until May 31st. And registered registrar is, we usually need 2 pieces of ID. And so we're just waiting. And so if you know someone who needs to be registered, women in Alpha Kappa Alpha can do that for you here locally. Women in the League of Women Voters can do that for you as well. And I'm sure there are other organizations. I know the Deltas also have registered deputy registrars, because we did a workshop with them a couple of weeks ago. So there's many deputy registrars out here who would love to register you or your family member to vote. And so please let us know, and then register online now until June the 12th. So then, let's say you are registered and you're ready, good to go. Well, there's several options in terms of how you can vote. So one is you can vote by mail. Citizens are encouraged to utilize the vote by mail option for voting. Ballots must be returned on or before June 28th by 7 p.m. And so I'll give you some info up here. Let me move this up. And so registered citizens can request a ballot in 2 ways. You can complete your request online. So let's say you have access to technology. You can request your ballot online, or you can actually print an application and mail the completed application to the county clerk's office. Let's say you don't have access to internet. Well, and you might need that piece of paper and pencil again. And so if you don't have access to internet, you most likely wouldn't be on this on this webinar. But in case you know some people who need the phone number, they can call 217-384-3724. That's 384-3724, and you can request that the application be sent to you. Now, there's 2 ways that you can do that as well. On the application, it's going to ask you 2 things. It's going to ask you, would you like to vote by mail ballot for all future elections that I'm eligible to vote for, or I would like to vote by mail ballot for only the upcoming elections, which means every time there's an election, you would have to then request a ballot. So you can do one of 2 things. You can say, I would like mail ballot for all future elections. You can check that box, or I just want it for this particular one. So I have actually printed my ballot out. I'm printed my application out. Have I sent it in yet? No, because I'm kind of like, do I really want to mail by ballot, or do I actually want to go and walk in and cast my vote in person? I'm not sure, but guess what? If I go ahead and fill this out and I get my ballot in the mail, and I decide I don't want to do a mail-in ballot, I can just take my ballot with me, take it to my polling place, and turn it in. So just because you request a ballot doesn't mean that you have to use it. And so, but you do need to return it. They will not let you vote if you've got a ballot out there. So you will have to return the ballot with you. They will do whatever they need to do with it, and then you will be able to vote in person. Let's see, request that you so print an application and mail the completed application to the county clerk's office. Request that you receive the ballot for this election only, or request that you receive a ballot for every election until you tell them to stop. Your request must be submitted. You can request it now until June the 27th. And so you can actually make the request for your ballot right now. As I say, either online or through a paper request. You can do that now up until June the 27th. And then the clerk's office will start to send out those ballots, not until May. And so, yes, you can put that request in now, but you will not get a ballot until May the 9th. It's starting May 19th, and they send them out every day after that. So, well, not sure. Maybe maybe I might vote by mail. I'm not sure, but I think I might want an early vote. If you choose to vote in person, you have the option of voting early. And so for registered voters, which means you are already registered as a voter in Champaign County, you can vote early at Brookings Center beginning May the 19th. And so you would just have to go. You don't necessarily have to, if this is your first, if you just registered to vote for the first time, let's say with the deputy registrar, you shouldn't have to show ID, because once you've done that, you should be fine. But take ID just in case, but you shouldn't have to show any ID. But for registered voters, vote early at Brookings beginning May 19th. Vote early at campus locations beginning June the 13th, and then vote early at Champaign County locations beginning June 13th. So what might those locations be? We do have universal voting sites, which means anyone can vote there. And there's Brookings Administrative Center, Urbana Free Library, UI Quad, Champaign Public Library, Douglas Branch Library, Sholem Aquatic Center, Champaign Urbana Public Health District Office. Those were the locations last time. They most likely will be the same, and there'll be some more added to them. So where do you find those information? Where do you find the information closer to the election? You can go to our website, Epsilon Omega's website, our Facebook page, as well as our website has that information. The League of Women Voters, they will have that information as well. County clerk's office, they will have that information as well. So the information is out there. We just have to encourage you to go out there and get it. So the primary election, June 28th, 2022, you can vote at your local polling place, or you can vote at the early voting locations if you decide you just want to be. I used to be that way. I just had to walk into the booth the day of election to cast my vote. I just had to do it. The last couple of years, I did vote by mail last year, and I did early voting the year before that. But you might still be like I used to be. I just had to walk into my polling place. That's June 28th, 2022. Make sure that you vote. We appreciate your time because your vote matters. Thank you for your time, for going through that. And so, James, let me stop sharing my screen. All right, let's see. Stop sharing my screen. Oh, shoot. There we go. All right, so, oh, shoot. So I'm gonna stop. Is that how I stop sharing? Nope, 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 nope. Oh, shoot. All right, hold on. I don't see the things at the bottom to say, but tell me to stop. Hold on, hold on. There we go. No? Yes, there we go. All righty. So, James, so thank you again for being with us this evening. Could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and how you got started in this work that you do to inform voters about who's running?
Well, I got started in voter outreach several years ago, and I've been working with the League of Women Voters to get nonpartisan voter information out into the community, because these local elections can have really big impacts on the community. And the local elections are where your vote really matters the most. So yeah, I've been working with the League for the last few years to try to get that information out there.
Excellent. So I see something that we have on the screen. Can you share with us what that is?
Yes, this is votechampaign.org. It's a website that I helped put together in partnership with the League to help put voter education information into Champaign County. On this website, we cover all elections for Champaign County, whether it be Urbana, Champaign, Rantoul, Mahomet. If it's a representative in Champaign County, we cover it. On the main page, we have links to research your ballot. You can find the sample ballot. You can also check your voter registration. We link to the county clerk's page and the state election page. And you can also check for links to vote at home or vote in person. So we make it really, really easy to get informed on who's running. Further on down, we also link to like the Champaign or the League of Women Voters and other things in the community. But our primary goal is to get more people out there and voting. And then the big thing that we do is we put together the candidate information guide every election, where we research all the candidates that are running for office in Champaign County. And then we list all their information in one place to make it really easy to find. This upcoming election is a primary election. So in a primary election, you have to choose either a Republican or a Democrat ballot. It's not a declaration of party, but you can only vote on one party's ballot. So when you choose that ballot, you only get candidates from that one party. So that kind of determines like which different offices you vote for and which candidates you'll see. So we separate the guide into based by party. Also at the very top of the guide, we have a random race spotlight where we spotlight one of the random elections that are happening. And this, you can just randomize it and it'll show you different ones. But you can also scroll down the guide and see all the different candidates running for the different spots. There's things from governor to secretary of state, to attorney general, to treasurer, to comptroller. And on this guide, we feature specifically candidates that are contested. There's a bunch of candidates running, but we only feature the contested candidates because those are the races where your vote will make a difference, because the uncontested ones, that will only have the one winner. But perhaps the most important thing for the upcoming election is the congressional races. The congressional races are the more local races, and these, for US Congress, these people determine everything on the federal level. So when it comes to laws or budget or just different things on the federal level, Congress is what does that. And most of the Congress districts in our county are contested. There's 3 districts, there's 13. 13 covers the city of Champaign as well as the city of Urbana. Then there's District 15. That covers the more rural areas like Mahomet and St. Joe, and to the south and the rural parts of the county. Then there's also District 2. District 2 covers specifically Rantoul. Covers Rantoul, and then it goes straight north. District 2 also covers Danville, but Danville is not in Champaign County, but just FYI, it's the same district for Danville. So these districts are contested. And as you can see, for most of them, they have both Democrats and Republicans contested for it. 15, I think, is just Republicans, but 13 and 2 both have, selections of candidates. So we list all that information. There's also the Champaign County Sheriff is contested. That's one of the only contested elections on the county level, but we list that here. On the Democrat side, it's just the one sheriff running, so that's not contested there. We also have links for more uncontested information. And we try to just make it as straightforward as possible. Also, we have candidate questionnaires that have gone out, and these candidate questionnaires will be published on the 22nd. So in just a couple of days, they'll be on the website. Once the candidate questionnaires have been posted, then you'll be able to see the candidate Q&As. This is one of the guides from the last election, just as an example. There will be this candidate Q&A link, and then when you click that, it will show all the questions and answers from the candidate. We print the answers just as the candidate gives it to us, and we let you, compare the two candidates side by side. Also, when available, we'll also link to candidate forum videos. Like the league will be putting, the League of Women Voters usually does like a candidate forum or a candidate debate. And so when those are available, we'll list those videos here as well, just in this general area. We also list a link where you can check what district you're in. That link will take you to the county clerk's website. And then once you go to that website, you can look up your district and it will look a little something like that. So I think that covers most of it. But yeah, so we're just trying to make it as straightforward and as easy as possible to get informed on these candidates, because a lot of these races are, very important, and you're especially on the Congress level, like that's where your local vote really adds up. So.
Well, it sounds like, so in terms of where you get the information, it sounds like from the different questionnaires, from the videos that they share. Do you do any personal interviews with them, or is it basically the interviews and videos?
So for the information, we gather it from the candidates' websites, and just like the candidates themselves, we send them the questionnaire, and then we ask the candidates if there's like any information that we've missed. And then we link all of their information, like their website, their Facebook, their email, their phone, whatever information that we have on the candidate, we link it there so that you can do more research on them. We don't do like video interviews directly. But the league is putting together a series of videos of the candidates on the Champaign County level. They're also going to be those videos are going to be short. They're going to be about like 5 minutes per candidate. Those videos will also cover some of the uncontested candidates, just so that you can kind of get a head start and know, like, what they're talking about for the general election in November. But the league is going to be putting out those videos, and those will probably be middle of May, I would imagine, when they're up. But yeah, I think that covers it.
Excellent. So it sounds like the website or the candidate guide is kind of fluid. And so as you get information, you kind of update the website as you go along. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly. The main thing will be the questionnaires that go up this Friday. After that, we'll slowly add information as it becomes available, like the candidate forms and that sort of thing. Usually for the most up-to-date information, the best bet is like social media, like following the league's social media account. The League of Women Voters has a great social media team that's been working really hard on putting out election updates via Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So that would probably be the best thing to follow for like election updates, because they'll also post anytime that there's an update with votechampaign.org, because like we're working in partnership. It's basically like the league's candidate guide. So anytime there's updates there, you'll see it on the league's social media. So yeah, it's a little bit fluid.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us in preparation for the primary on June the 28th?
Just that that your vote really does go pretty far on these elections. The anticipated turnout is somewhere around 20 or 25% of the already registered voters. So just a little bit of extra turnout can really go a far way in these elections. And with the IL-13, that US Congress seat, That's kind of like an entirely new seat. So it's kind of like anybody's guess, like who's going to get that seat. So that vote really does make a big difference.
Yep, that'll be interesting. And so I'm looking forward to you coming back. I think we got you coming back in either September or June, to talk about what the results of all of this great stuff is, to kind of share with us. And so we'll see if we beat that 20%. Let's hope we beat the 20% in terms of primary election, but you never know. So we're looking forward to having you back to share that information with us, and to update us on, whatever. We don't know who the candidates are for the general election by that point, but so thank you for your time this evening. I think that's it for us, Janelle. Thank you for your time this evening, people.
Thank you. Thank you both. Really good, informative information so that we are prepared and ready to get out and vote. This last portion of our session, we want to take some question and answers. We received a few questions in our Q&A chat here in the Zoom, and I am going to do a handoff and ask Ms. Katina Wilcher, also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Epsilon Epsilon Omega chapter, to assist with those questions for our panelists. Oh, I think, you're still on mute.
Thank you.
There you are.
Thank you so much. I believe the word you used at the onset of the webinar was robust, and tonight was indeed a robust conversation. So thank you to our panelists. We do have a few questions, and please, to our panelists, feel free to jump in and respond accordingly. What partnerships are being developed with private entities to provide culturally, linguistically competent mental health counseling services?
I'll jump in. You talk about one of the biggest needs that we have, not only in our community, but across the country is, coming out of COVID and the stress, the trauma that we've all been through for the last 3 years, on top of the multiple pandemics we've been through the last few years. Mental health supports are really, really important part of the conversation as it relates to solutions and what we need. Through the coalition, we have a race relations committee, and that's one of the things that we are talking about. So I know on May 17th out at Parkland, we're going to have a conversation and discussion that Joe Omosagi and Donna Tanner Harold are leading, Joycelyn Landrum Brown are leading, talking about mental health in the Black community. We also have the Trauma and Resiliency Initiative that we've set up a number of years ago through Karen Sims and her team that are doing a great deal of work around trauma, mental health, and then also through our blueprint, looking at how we build more mental health supports for our community. But the first thing, Katina, we've got to do is start having the conversation and get Black folks and get the Black community comfortable talking about the fact that we need to talk about our traumas and our struggles that we have and that we've been going through. So it's an ongoing subject and topic, and really, really important right now.
Thank you, Tracy. Lamont, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not just to piggyback off what Tracy's saying, but also here with the city of Urbana, and I think they do it in Champaign as well. The importance of mental health has finally made it to our police departments. And so here in Urbana, we have on-site social workers that go out to certain scenes and sit with families, victims, and perpetrators, offering services that go beyond crime and violation of laws, but certainly the impact that's caused by those things. So, I think it's slowly coming to the forefront, but exactly what Tracy's saying, trying to encourage the Black community that it's time to stop sitting in dark spaces and just funneling everything under the crazy umbrella. People are suffering. And if the pandemic did nothing else, it really highlighted spaces where mental health causes a complete breakdown, in everyday life.
Thank you. And that's a nice segue to our next question. To your point, Lamont, you mentioned law enforcement and this recent embracing of mental health. services. One of the questions that was posed is people in the community often fear law enforcement. How do we begin to build trust?
Well, you know, I want to be transparent. At the onset of my hiring, trust was really at an all-time low with the police here in the city of Urbana. There had been some unfortunate incidents that had happened prior to and on the heels of the George Floyd and so much that was going on nationally that just really caused damage. And so one thing that I've shared, you know, with the upper echelon of our police department, as well as some of the officers, but specifically with the community, is we need to create space for people to hurt. We need to let them know it's okay to hurt, but are you willing to move from that hurt? It's okay not to trust the police. I don't have a problem with that, but are you willing to move from that? Can we have conversations? And then to say to the police, are you now ready and willing to hear and to listen to people? There has to be time from traffic stops to just, you know, civic engagements where we stop tuning out and pushing away people who speak from a position of pain. We can't begin to apply any sort of salve, any sort of reconciliation until I'm going to say, you know what, that does sound horrible. I'm sorry that you went through that. And it's okay that you don't trust us right now, but we're interested in building trust. Can we come back? Can we keep talking? You know, there has to be some consistent repetition, you know, in my opinion.
Thank you.
So great question. As I shared with you, addressing police community relations and specifically low-income communities and the Black community and Latino communities' relations with police is a very important part of our community coalition. I like to say the trust on both ends is well earned. What I mean by that is our history is real. There's reasons the Black community don't trust police, and there's exchanges and interactions on why police has difficulty in trusting in the Black community too. And so we have to address it, Katina. We have to think and create ways for conversation, for dialogue. We have a new police chief just announced today in Champaign. I know this is an important part of his agenda. We have an interim in Urbana. We have a new police chief at Parkland. I think it's going to get approved tonight. And the sheriff, and as well as the U of I police chief. This is all on their radar. And again, we've just got to continue having the conversations. As Lamont said, get people in the spaces for dialogue and discussion and the honest conversations about hurt, pain, and all those things.
Thank you so much, Tracy and Lamont. We have one more question in the queue, and it is, what are some opportunities and or concrete programs that exist for youth to make more income or have access to our universities while they're still in high school?
Yeah, again, great question. So we do have what we call is the YES program in Champaign, which is a summer job employment program for high school kids. We'll have well over 100 kids in the Champaign program. We're looking for sites for young people to work. We pay the salaries of the students, so we just need work sites for them to go into. So please call our office if you are interested in participating in that. In Urbana, we have a similar initiative underway to provide summer employment programs. We're talking with Urbana High School right now, getting that coordinated so young people can work, get paid, earn, learn about the world of work. The university is a participant in all of our summer employment programs. We want more, we need more from the university, and we need more from the business community. So we need more support. It's really important. As the kids always say to me, Mr. Parsons, I need that bread. So we have to help create and inform and create opportunities for our young folks to learn about the world of work. That helps address that hope issue that I mentioned very early on with our root causes, right? When kids don't have hope and aspirations, get to explore their goals and what they're interested in, you know, how can we expect them to learn and think differently, right? If we as a community don't step up to do more, create more opportunities for them.
Thank you.
Just to quickly piggyback off, we've had transition in Urbana, not just in the police department with the retirement of Brian Serafin, but at both schools. Fresh Principal Taryn Nance is a first-year principal at Urbana High School, and Dr. Joe Wiemelt will be resigning, and new principal Derek Cooper will be starting. So I think that what I want the community to hear is that with change, we need patience. We need patience, because not just only have the leaders been replaced, a lot of staff who operated in a lot of these coordinator positions that Tracy could just go to directly and say, hey, you know what, can you go ahead and send me that list of 30 Urbana students that we can get employed? That person isn't there now. So, keeping on my duties, and I don't mind, I've been working with Principal Nance to try to be that kind of coordinator go-between, try to get these kids' names, their information on paper. Let's get them over to the community coalition. Let's get these businesses, from food service businesses to the park district here in Urbana, to our trades, to open up and not just employ these young people. We got to start teaching skills. They need something that they can take with them when they leave the job. And that goes from McDonald's to the swimming pool to housing construction. You got to have some sort of skill that you can replicate for the funds. If all I'm doing is chasing the money and I don't obtain the skill to keep the money flowing, what good have I done? So, big shout outs to Tracy and the Community Coalition for their specific and intentional work in the city of Urbana. It would be easy for them to fall under the county umbrella and stay on the Champaign side of Wright Street. And they have not done that. They have not done that. They've brought programs, they've brought funding, they've brought people from the university, from the business sectors, and said, we need you in Urbana, in these poor areas with these kids, and they've showed up. So, I think right now what we're all facing is we're fighting the gun right now. Summer's upon us. And Tracy and I both are working very hard and very diligent over at Urbana High School, really to try to help them play catch up with all of the, the change in leadership over there. And the hope is that, we have, more kids at work than in incarceration. That's the big thing.
Thank you. Those are the questions that have presented thus far for this evening. Last opportunity to get a question in before we transition. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Wow, what an evening full of information. I have a few takeaways. I think one that was stressed by two of our panelists, Tracy and Lamont, that we can no longer normalize this subject. It is important that if you see something, you should say something. I believe this is probably becoming more of an issue that is closer to home for many of us. And so whether you are personally affected within your own family, someone who's hurting for their child, someone who's hurting for someone else. And so it's important that we are helping in a way by sharing information that we know or we receive, because it has the potential to save lives. Another thing we learned from our panelists, that this election, only 20 to 25% of people are likely to turn out and vote. That is a number I would hope that when we have our presentation later this year, where we're recapping some of that information, we can hear that number has gone out, and that will come from those of you who are out there voting and encouraging others that to vote. Offer someone a ride to the polls. Ask others if they are registered to vote or if they know where they can do that. Be great to have that number go up. A few things that I want to just let you know about in regards to our future webinars. We have a webinar scheduled for June 15th at 6:30 p.m., a conversation with our representatives. We'll have representatives from both the city of Champaign and both the city of Urbana talking about their roles, and maybe some other officers to talk about their roles in newly elected positions. Later in the year, September 21st, also at 6:30, we will talk about voter turnout and trends. And again, that's where we hope to hear that number of voter turnouts from this election, this primary, has gone up. I'd also like to announce the Central Region of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated will host their second AKA virtual day at the Capitol in Springfield, Illinois. It's going to be on May 11th of 2022. It is an opportunity that the public is invited, so please take a look at our Facebook page for more information on how you can tune in and participate with us. As always, with our connection link, you can visit our chapter's website, aka eeomega.com, and find out more information about Connections events and information that is related to voting rights, voter information, things that we think you'd be interested to know more about. Finally, I'd like to do another thank you to our panelists this evening: Tracy Parsons, Mon Peppers, James Ricky, thank you so very much for your information, for sharing your time and giving us an opportunity to hear from you all. We really appreciate it. I'd also like to do a special thank you to some of the folks who are behind the scenes making this webinar possible for us this evening. Ms. Ann Prislin, who's a member of the League of Women Voters, Dion Webster, Ms. Desiree McMillian, Ms. Shayla Matuka, and Katina Wilcher. Thank you all for making this a possible evening, and we hope that you've enjoyed sharing with us. If nothing else, have a wonderful, wonderful evening.